Hello, this is the ADDAC system, Intuitive Quantizer. So, a pitch quantizer is a module where you can put any voltage in, no matter what that voltage may be, and it constrains that voltage to a musical scale that we determine. Now, the beauty of this is that you can take any signal in your system, be it an LFO or the random jiggling of a sample and hold generator, a DC offset that's generated by a joystick or something like this, or like the loops of a Turing machine, anything at all, and we can constrain that madness to a musical scale. So no matter what lunacy goes in, music comes out. Obviously everything is music, but you know what I mean. Now the problem is that when your modular obsession goes way beyond the point of no return, you'll more than likely find yourself wanting to sequence more than one voice at once, i.e. you want to make a whole track in real time with your modular. Because then that begs a question, which is, what if you want all of those individual voices to be in tune, to be in the same tune? So enter the Intuitive Quantizer, which can simultaneously constrain 4 different voltages to one common scale, and it can do so over 10 octaves. The Intuitive Quantizer lets you intuitively just feel out the scale you want to be currently playing by pushing little buttons on this virtual keyboard so that you can constrain all 4 voices to the scale that's on the keyboard. And if you kind of don't know what the scales are, you can just feel them out by just turning the notes on and off, and it'll all be quantized in real time. But you can also determine the scale that it's quantizing to by picking a key, and whether it's flat or sharp, minor or major, and then push set key like this. So you can very quickly change the scales. But also there are more scales hidden behind the panel. You can also play the Intuitive Quantizer like a real-time keyboard to play your modular. And you can also fine-tune many aspects of the machine. Its tuning standards, it has the Moog tuning standard, 1 volt per octave, but it also does Buchla tuning too. And also, perhaps more importantly, you can do other funky tuning standards too. It doesn't just do equally tempered. You can do crazy stuff like Lamonti Young's well-tuned piano scale, which they call pure. You can also do Boland Pierce tuning, just tuning, and exotic tuning. And you can also make your own tunings and do microtonal tuning as well. And with all of that sweet smorgasbord of stuff, you can save it into the memory as a preset so that if you're using the Intuitive Quantizer to play live, you can fine-tune your setup and then recall it on the day. Okay, so I've just set up the Intuitive Quantizer to be in tune with the Atlantis. How to do this is described in the manual, and much better left for the manual, I think. So let's take that as read, shall we? Now, what I've got is the output of the Intuitive Quantizer channel 1 going to the 1 volt per octave input of the Atlantis. And I've got the gate out from the Intuitive Quantizer going to the gate input of the Atlantis. Pretty crazy, right? And the keyboard mode thing that I mentioned before, we access this by holding down this top button, and then the Intuitive Quantizer goes into keyboard mode. I can actually push the notes on the intuitive quantizer, and the gate outputs a gate, and the output one outputs the corresponding voltage. And then you use this dial here to go up and down the scales. So it's quite handy as a just kind of little reference keyboard for your system. Of course, you could use that to create voltage offsets for other things as well. There's musical applications to it too, but it's just a wicked previewing system. But that's kind of not what we're here for. We're here for the actual quantizing. So I'll move it back into quantizer mode, and now you can see that I have got the IntelliGel planar going into it. And if I swiggle the planar, it's going to quantize the free voltages that the planar outputs. It's a joystick module. And the joystick is just outputting a sort of steady ramp. And it's then quantizing that ramp to a scale. But it's going to output a gate every time it makes a shift. And you can actually tell the module how long you want that gate to be. You go in here, you hold down this button, which corresponds to gate, and we can choose the amount of gate. I can have it being slightly longer. Or you can just not use this part of it if you don't want to at all, but it's quite nice. You just get two things out. And it's nice for kind of generative patches because you can just feed it an LFO and it's going to give you both the gate and the quantized output. It's kind of nice. So I'll kind of leave that on for the moment. And then we can just change the scale. So what we do is we just pick the notes that we want. So I can just turn them on and off at any time. And it's nice if you're a dumbass like me and you don't really know musical theory that well. I can just feel out scales and kind of make them work. But you can pick scales another way, which is that you can use this dial here to choose. This basically says key, and it's saying C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And you can pick, say, E. You can have a flat, nothing, or a sharp, and major and minor. And then you just push a button. And then you can adjust that and then call up C, sharp, minor, and so on. Of course, you can also pick other scales. And as we've talked about, you can also have other tuning standards in the thing too. So sky's the limit, folks. But in this instance, I'll stick to the most accessible scales. Then if we try quantizing something else, so for example, if I take an LFO and I'm going to use maths to generate an LFO because I always have time for maths, and I think this sounds dramatic. I can change the gate length, by the way, by holding down this button. By changing the gate length, it kind of almost changes how it quantizes. Shorter gate lengths lead to a more kind of trilling sound. It's nice. I could give it the sum, and then I can use the other voltages to offset everything. Nice. Oh, nice. And then I can get the other side of maths to trill. So in this way you can just take like an interesting voltage and turn it into music. And it's just simply one voltage going in, and I'm getting both a gate and a pitch out. And it kind of sounds like music, right? Hey, let's not speak too soon. Nice. Okay, so in this second example, I have a much more complex patch, which is really just a more complex voice, and I'm going to use the intuitive quantizer to quantize something else, which is the Turing machine, which is this wonderful random looping sequencer by Music Thing, which I'm sure you know about, and the Turing machine is just going to output looping random voltages like this. Pretty loopy. And the intuitive quantizer is quantizing them, so it keeps them to a musical scale, and I can change that scale, all well and groovy. But it's just kind of like, you know, it's a bit all over the shop, and I'm running the Turing machine quite fast, but it's just this kind of widdly sequence. I don't want whittle, I want something more coherent. Now, this is where the gate input comes into play, so I'm sending it the same stream of pulses that I'm using to advance the Turing machine, but if I give a division, a slower amount, what I just fed it was the third division of that master clock that I'm clocking the Turing machine with. And what it is doing with that, it means that every time the intuitive quantizer gets a gate into its gate input, then it will quantize, and it will hold that quantization until it gets a gate again, and then it will re-quantize at whatever pitch the Turing machine is outputting, which is pretty cool, because that means that you're just getting a much more sensical version of your sequence. In the background, the Turing machine is going madly along, but by using this, by using the gate input, we're able to get a much more coherent melody out from that random sequence. The application of this that I think is tremendously useful is in all of that stuff that I've been doing about my live cases. If you revisit those videos, the whole thing about using two sequences, adding up their sum, and then quantizing the output, by its very nature often makes very widdly sequences. By using the gate input here, you're able to then just sample that whittle at a point and hold it. And then by changing that gate pattern, you're going to change the melody. It's just a really clever way of making sense out of noodly sources. I'm using the Abstract Data ADDAC 51 here, which is a very, very cool envelope generator where you can actually just use one dial to change the whole curve. And then I could use weird gate patterns, like I could use the extra gate outs from this Euclidean Circles module. Ace. So this is just really making a random source that much more musical by choosing when I sample from it, so that you're not just getting this constant stream of notes. And in fact, it would mean that you can sample very unusual things, really, really violent sources, and make sense of them. For example, I should be able to just take the noise output of the Turing machine and then just sample that. So what is driving the intuitive quantizer here is white noise coming out of the Turing machine, which is going to be all over the keyboard. But because I'm only sampling it every now and then, it stays a lot more coherent than it would otherwise, thanks to the gate input. case. So here I have the intuitive quantizer in chord mode. So there's only one input, a voltage coming in from the Z8000, but it's going out to all 4 oscillators, which are tuned together. And using the little menu, you can pick a note and offset it. So if I go note 2, so in this way, I can change note 2 and then note 3. So this is kind of the money shot though, really, which is 4-voice polyphonic quantizing, where all 4 voices are being quantized the same scale, but each voice has its own sequence. So this is kind of the beauty. So what I've got is the Z8000 from Tip Top Audio, and that is feeding into the intuitive quantizer. And then the quantized pitches that this is output, weren't quantized originally, have become quantized. They then feed out to all the various voices, and it's predominantly made up of IntelliGel oscillators. That's a Dixie, and the Atlantis. But then as a 4th voice, I've got the Akemi's Taiko from ALM, which is a drum module, but it's a voice as well. And the 2 Dixies are going through the Wasp and the Z2040 from Tip Top Audio, and it sounds pretty sweet. All go through the Mutant Hot Glue. So, voice 1. And I am generating the gates from the intuitive quantizer. So, you know, whenever the Z8000 sequence changes, whenever the pitch changes, then the intuitive quantizer sends a pitch. A gate, I should say. That's the Dixie and the Z2040. And then that's using the abstract data for envelopes. And then a 3rd voice. Wasp acid. Pretty great. I basically just tweaked a couple of like 2 or 3 dials on the Z8000. It just kind of came out sounding like this. When it's all in tune, you just kind of can't fail. Now, Akemi's Taiko. It's pretty great. It's great. So that's the intuitive Quantizer. Now, I haven't buried into the assign input in this video because I guess I would just point out that I found the menu system to be not very intuitive, in the sense that, it relies on remembering menu settings, decoding the sort of very shorthand that's written on the module in order to remember, if I push, this assignable to, then I have to push that for that to, activate transpose. I think the problem is that I found the manual quite frustrating to work with. I don't think certain things are explained as well as they could be, so it's not bleedingly obvious quite how to do certain things, but it is very capable nonetheless. And if you persevere with it, it's a powerful module. But the core functionality is dead easy, and that's how I've used it. I'm just feeling out scales by turning the notes on and off, or I'm setting the key, the switch here, and then just hitting set key, and it sets up for that key. That's just the easiest thing in the world, and it does that really, really well. So if you're looking for a way to quantize 4 voices at once to the same tune, it is a good option. So check it out. Thanks.